It's only been a couple weeks, but we are back with another episode of the Walk On Red Shirts. How's your off season going so far, William?
It's going great. I've been watching football games on Fridays. I've been listening to football podcasts Monday through Thursday, and I've been talking on the Twitters and the group chats all about college football. So it's the off season for some, but not for the casuals, but not for big time elites like us, Jake.
The people who really care are this is where you're invested. This is where you really get to know about your team. This is
That's
where
right.
we separate the casuals from the diehards.
That's right. We are diehard. We are diehards, and I would also say we're borderline degenerates.
That's okay. But are we degenerates or are we just passionate?
I like passion. That's a good flip. We're in political season right now, so let's do some good political speech. And yeah, we're passionate. We're not degenerates.
We're passionate about the sport of college football. We're
That's
passionate
right.
about the integrity of the sport.
That's right.
Well, there's been a lot that happened. I want to start with a couple of different things. You know,
Wait, before you do that,
obviously.
it looks like you're drinking a beer that you may have
Oh,
won.
I
Does it
am. I
does
am.
it taste like blood, sweat, and
Not
tears?
sponsored. Not sponsored. But this is 13 Stripes Brewery, Broken Crown Lager. Shout out me winning our bet this year and drinking some
Humble.
some South Carolina beer.
Listen,
You'd be drinking Ohio beer if you had won, but
I,
you fell apart at the end.
I did. I did. I choked. I choked at the end. I was the opposite of Clemson. I lost my steam at the end. But I gave you this one, Jake. So next year we're starting with a clean slate. I cannot wait to drink the 24 pack of Ohio beer you're sending me.
Whoa, 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 whoa! You sent me four. We up in the bet next year?
Quality over quantity. South Carolina beer.
Yeah, well, you're going to try some Ohio beer later this year, so
That's true.
you'll get to be the judge if Ohio beer is good or not.
That's right.
Uh, well, so there's been a lot that's happened, and I know we have a bunch of different things we want to talk about here and just give opinions. And I don't really want to spend this time talking about news, and we can talk about the coaching hires. We can talk about one of the last episodes we talked about with Nick Saban, and a lot of things have happened. Jim Harbaugh has gone to the NFL.
What?
I know, wild. After 3 years, he finally decides to make the jump.
I thought the clause in his contract where he couldn't get in trouble with the NCAA was going to be the deal that kept him at Michigan. Turns out you can't do that.
So the thing with coaching that I'm really interested in is what is going on with coaches at mid-tier programs. Over the last month, you've seen Sean Elliott at Georgia State go to South Carolina as an assistant, nonetheless. Chip Kelly left his head coaching job to be the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Kane Womack left his head coach at South Alabama to be defensive coordinator at Bama. Jeff Hafley left Boston College to be the defensive coordinator at Green Bay. And Maurice Linguist left Buffalo to be a defensive coordinator at Alabama.
Yeah.
Like, are we at a point where it's more desirable to be an assistant at a top program or in the NFL than it is to be the head coach of a mid-tier program?
I honestly, Jake, I think because a common theme with all those schools, except for maybe South Alabama, is they weren't really producing in which and they weren't doing really well. Maybe Georgia State, but UCLA. Chip Kelly was on the hot seat for what reason last
There
year?
was rumors that Chip Kelly was going to be fired, but then he beat USC. And there was also very adamant that Chip Kelly didn't really want to be at UCLA anymore. So that
Right.
one wasn't a surprise. His name was being thrown out for a lot of things.
Right. And Jeff Hafley, I mean, you're at BC. If you have the opportunity to go coach in the NFL, guys, I don't think people realize, yes, college football is great. It's a beautiful sport. The schedule for NFL coaches is absolutely the most desirable thing in the world. So
Mm-hmm.
you go from a college coach, if you have 2 weeks off per year, essentially, maybe 4 weeks off per year where you're not recruiting and you're not coaching. 4 weeks. The NFL, when it's the off season, you are off. Yes, you're whining and dining, you're learning, you're doing this and that, but you have time off. And when the clock hits 5 o'clock, a lot of those NFL coaches, they get to go home and be with their families. College coaches don't get that. I mean, they're up at 7 in the morning, 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning. Don't get back until 10 p.m. because they're watching film. They're traveling. They're going all over the place. The NFL schedule is a lot more lucrative than the college schedule. So I can see like a head coach in the college realm going to be a defensive coordinator or a coordinator job in the NFL being like that wasn't that crazy to me. I think that one got blown out of proportion. I mean, Buffalo to Bama, I know Nick Saban's not there anymore, so it's not necessarily the jumping board that it used to be, maybe. But uh, Bama holds a lot of clout. If you've got that on your resume, it's going to look a lot better than Buffalo. But Sean Elliott has a lot of ties to South Carolina.
He
I'm
spent
pretty
a lot of years there.
Yeah, and so he was there when I was getting, I don't know if you could call it recruited, but I went on a visit to one of their practices, and watching that dude coach. Number one, they should have never let him leave. He should have been the head coach when they made him interim when Steve Spurrier, dipped out in the middle of the season. He should have been the head coach. Instead, they hired Will Muschamp. We all know how that turned out. But Sean Elliott has some of the most energy. I'll tell you a story. I don't know if you remember Brandon Shelley played right tackle for the South Carolina, ended up going to the NFL. I went there for a summer practice, and they were doing conditioning at the end of practice. Brandon Shell was 6'5", 6'6", 330 pounds. I mean, he was massive, and he was struggling to do the conditioning test. Sean Elliott was in his face, running it with him, running it with his offensive line, doing all the conditioning stuff. When Brandon Shell couldn't run anymore, he put him on his back and was carrying him for the conditioning so he would finish it. That dude is insane. That's a great hire for South Carolina. And also, I think I read that his family still lived in Columbia. So like all the stuff that his kids were doing, he was having to travel 4 hours,
Mhm.
to come see them for a sports game, or if it was an important event, he was having to travel to go do that. So I think that one might have had some family reasons to it, but there does seem like to be an issue that there is a trend going on.
Kane Womack and Maurice Linguist, they both coached with Kalen DeBoer at Indiana. Weird enough, all of them were on the coaching staff at Indiana.
Who
So
could forget?
you almost feel like there was the lunch table talk of like, guys, when we have our own program, like when we're running a show, like this is how we're gonna do it.
Yeah,
And then it's Kalen DeBoer gets hired. He goes, guys, I'm not at Washington anymore. I'm in Alabama. Like, and Kane Womack being down the road, like that made sense. And then Maurice Linguist, like as much as I love Maction, the MAC is a very tough place to win. And for Jeff Halfley, I think his seat was already getting warm, and I
yeah, oh
think
yeah,
in his mind, he's viewed as a better candidate leaving as a head coach than being fired and then trying to find a job.
right. All he has to do is go to Green Bay, have a good season, two good seasons. He can come back and pick a job he wants.
He could be an NFL head coach.
Right. So I don't think it's I think this got blown out of proportion. I think this is off season exaggeration. So a lot of stuff gets blown out of proportion during the off season because we have nothing else to talk about. But it does seem alarming. I mean, guys who are head coaches, they have a program and they're going to be assistants. I mean, like Sean Elliott's not even going to be a coordinator; he's just going to be a position coach.
And a
That one,
lot of this doesn't happen if Nick Saban doesn't retire.
correct. This caused a lot. This caused a lot. So, and like we said about Chip Kelly, and then obviously like Ohio State has a lot of clout too. A
Well,
lot more
Chip
than
Kelly was rumored
UCLA.
to be involved in that job before Bill
Right.
O'Brien. So it almost seemed like it was a 1A, 1B, and then they chose Bill O'Brien. And as soon as like Bill O'Brien was gone, not even a day, and they already had Chip Kelly hired.
Yeah. That was
Now, I
extreme.
think they probably knew Bill O'Brien was going to be a finalist for that job as soon as the Boston College job came open. And
Right.
Bill O'Brien going to Boston College is not like indicative of like, oh, he hated Ohio State after 3 weeks. There was some
It was a
talk
head coaching
about his
opportunity.
well, and his son has a medical disability or medical issue where Boston Hospital is like one of the best in the world for it.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
I don't know. I'm not fully educated on it, but I've read some things where, that's one reason why he's stuck in New England for so long because, they could be near that hospital.
Yeah, for
Now,
sure.
also, if being a head coach is not great for that lifestyle as well, if you're going to try to be taking your kid, you're doing that stuff. So, teach their own. I'm sure he's got a lot of money now, so he's got people to help him, especially when you're making multiple $1 million a year as a head coach.
Quick question before we move on though. What do you think is going on in Ohio State with? I mean, you would think Brian Hartline, right? No, who's the wide receiver coach?
Yeah, Brian Hartline.
Brian Hartline. Okay, I panicked. I'm an off-season brain. Um, do you think he's just not putting in for the offensive coordinator job? Do you think why is he not being considered for that?
So he still owns that title of co-offensive coordinator, but Ohio State wanted an experienced play caller
Mm,
because Ryan Day has said that he is not going to call plays anymore. Like he's not going to call plays this year.
Well, Chip
And
Kelly's
Brian
gonna try to
Hartline
get him to.
has not ever called plays. And no offense to him, but with the roster they have this year, this isn't really the year to experiment if you can call
Yeah,
plays or not.
this is the championship or bust roster that y'all put together. I mean, good
So
God.
this is not the roster to mess around and find out if you can call plays.
Yeah.
And Chip Kelly and Ryan Day are very, very familiar with each other. And so hopefully that chemistry works out.
Yeah, Chip Kelly coached him at New Hampshire, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe Chip Kelly might have been the offensive coordinator,
Yeah.
and Ryan Day was the quarterback. So,
Small world.
yeah. And then obviously Ohio State, the only other notable topic, Caleb Downs is a Buckeye, in case nobody heard by now.
Who is that? I've never heard of him.
Apparently he's just a decent safety. I don't know. We'll see if he's any good this year, I guess.
Why are people calling tampering on him? It's like, dude, Nick Saban left. You got a new coach coming in, and I think Ohio State was second on his list anyway. I mean, your coach just left.
He was interested. He was visiting Ohio State. There were a lot of people that were hopeful he would come to Ohio State, and there were some rumors that he didn't like Georgia because his brother Josh Downs was never recruited by Georgia. The family held that against him. Granted, I know Caleb Downs got a massive bag. Didn't matter where he was going, he was going to get a massive bag.
Allegedly.
Speaking of massive bag, now anybody can get a massive bag.
Can you
the NCAA
elaborate?
The NCAA might be cooked because of this lawsuit with Tennessee and Virginia.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that was a classic F around and find out. So the first off, we should have known the NCAA was going to implode when they started to get the government involved to help them out. When has our government ever done? When has the government ever done anything to help anything out? So great job on them. That's a classic NCAA move.
The NCAA could have avoided this if they had put guardrails in place at the beginning. Instead, they waited around and were like, maybe we'll do this. It might sound like a good idea. And then states started to say, we're going to make it a law that they can get NIL money and say, screw you to the NCAA.
Right. Well,
and enough states started to do it where they're like, oh, well, we can't lose California and Texas and Florida and Ohio and Pennsylvania and all these other states that say, well, now you're losing. If you're going to start penalizing, you're going to start penalizing all your biggest brands. So you have to. And the NCAA just basically said, okay, NIL's good to go, rather than saying like, all right, here's the guardrails of, okay, here's what NIL and here's how you are allowed to do it.
Yeah, they just never put it in place, and then they just decided randomly to start enforcing it this year. I'm like, and then they're like, "Hey, Tennessee, we're going to get your state legislator involved. We're going to get y'all in trouble." And the state legislator's like, "Hey, NCAA, we're going to sue you." Like these people are. Who is running the NCAA? Is it the Pac-12 commissioner? Is he also
He got fired.
NCAA?
He got fired. I don't know what you're bringing your Pac-12 commissioner in for.
No.
Because
he's not fired yet. He's got 2 more days.
Oh,
February 29th.
Sure, he's going to get a lot accomplished in his last 2 days.
No way he's playing golf right now in freaking San Bernardino.
Yeah, like the NCAA, all they had to do was establish the guardrails of what this could be, and they didn't. They let everybody else figure it out for themselves, and that's why we're in the situation that we are, and that's why these collectives have so much power. It's no longer about local car dealership wants to put somebody on an ad.
Right.
These collectives, sure, they help with that stuff. They help set these things up. But like there are so many times where the whole point of NIL is you have to get something in return. Like you can't just get given $1.5 million. You can't just give it $700,000. So a lot of times what they do is they set up these like banquets. And it's like, hey, come and people can come sit at your table for 2 hours and you schmooze with these boosters. And they're also going to pay $10,000 to your table, but it's also going to help pay you eventually. But we also get a lot of donations. So as long as you show up, you get your $700,000.
Yeah, you're legally Johnny Manziel.
Yeah. Yeah. They figure out all these workarounds so that you have to do these minimal things. You make an appearance somewhere, you sign a couple things like that make it very easy where you're not like clogging down all your time.
Honestly, Jake, I think this is the best thing that could have ever happened. I think NIL is going to burn. It's going to be a really bad situation. The NCAA is going to implode, and the SEC and the Big Ten are essentially going to remake college football from the ground up. And I would much rather see that leadership run college football than what's happening right now. I mean, what's happening right now is it's as if the NCAA felt like they never had to do anything, and now all of a sudden they're starting to put things in place and they don't know how to handle it. And they went from like, hey, let's just penalize people for getting a cheeseburger on the sideline to now like, oh, let's just let anybody do what we want, and then we'll pick and choose when we punish somebody. It's like that's not how it works. And I feel like they've set themselves up to collapse because I mean, you think Tennessee's going to be the first school? You think Tennessee and Virginia are going to be the first states to sue them? I mean,
this is just the start of it.
right. It's going to get worse. So brace yourself, folks. But we're probably not going to see that NCAA logo on at least college football in the near future. Would be my guess.
The only thing is, I wish that we had done football with every other sport with the NCAA because with all this realignment, like you see these smaller sports are going to be impacted. And I think with this whole realignment of what the NCAA looks like, I think you're going to see like, if not NCAA, like these schools might look to get rid of some of these other sports. Like if it's going to start costing them, especially some of these smaller programs, they're going to start losing more money.
Yeah.
I think that there's a way where some of these smaller programs are either going to basically drop football or they're going to drop other sports.
And that's, an AD being hired now is like, hey, how good are you at delivering bad news? Because essentially at this point, if it doesn't separate, they're going to have to spend time going up to all these different kids and their coaching staffs and saying, sorry, guys, you're a club sport now.
Mm-hmm.
And with Title
we'll honor
IX,
your scholarship until 3 or 4 years, but
they don't have to.
No, but I mean, I'm sure a lot of them will be like, we'll just honor your scholarship, but you're not playing an NCAA sport. You're playing in club sport, and you're going to play, it's going to also not necessarily be Division I programs. It's going to be whoever else has a club program in the area.
Right. And all those resources to get you there, gone. That's out of your pocket now. And it's sad. And with Title IX, you have to have at least the same amount of women's sports as you do men's sports. So what's going to happen is you're going to lose your men's baseball team. You're going to lose your men's soccer team. You're going to lose, track and field. You're going to lose these sports that people really do enjoy to go to.
I mean, you've got thousands of athletes, and there's more people that are athletes in other sports than football, if you comparatively, because you have 85 scholarship football players, but you've got, like I think Ohio State has like 1,000 scholarship athletes. Alabama's got like 800 scholarship athletes. 85 of them are football, but you've got another 700 that are other sports.
Right. And what's crazy, Jake, is there was already resentment. When I was at Clemson, there was a lot of resentment. Anytime the athletic groups would do stuff together, if we had banquets, if we had whatever, there was a lot of resentment towards football. I mean, literally all the other sports had a problem with us, essentially.
I'm sure that's a thing because especially at Clemson, football is probably king. In the South, football is king. At most schools, football is probably king.
Well, and to put this in perspective, I read a stat a few years ago. One Texas home football game makes more money than an entire Duke's men's basketball season. So you put that in perspective, they're going to treat the football teams a little bit different. I mean, that's just how much money talks. And
because they know winning is important for that kind of stuff too, because Texas probably made even more money this year because they made the playoffs. So if you can put a good football team, because you're getting more media exposure, you're going to sell more tickets, you're going to sell more merchandise. Now, granted, if a Duke basketball team does really well, the problem is they're just not as, I don't know, they're really visible, but you have more seats.
People, right.
Yeah.
They're putting 20,000 people in the seats. They're not putting 100,000. I mean, that's 5 times more people just going to the game. And then talk about people watching them. Just people, I mean, there's not as many people who are interested in college basketball there is college football. And I'm not saying that because of statistics. I'm saying that based off of the field. But I'm pretty sure if I looked it up, viewership, college football is going to be way higher than college basketball. So not only are you
from February 12th to February 18th, this is college basketball. The highest rating of a basketball game was a 0.99, and that was Purdue at Ohio State, and Ohio State upset, number 1 ranked Purdue. So obviously a very, very good game.
How convenient you picked that one, Jake.
That's literally the one I picked. Just literally the one I picked. I'm not a big Ohio State basketball fan. I don't really care about them much. I care more about Temple House, who also suck. But the one after that was Kentucky, Auburn, Kansas at Oklahoma, Michigan State at Michigan. And those were the only ones that registered above a 0.7.
Right.
If I go back and look at any college football game from last year, the best one every week is probably pushing at least a 7 or 8, and the best games of the year are pushing a 10 or 11.
Right, and it's unbelievable. And I mean, even if you look at overall, I mean, NFL games. I know it's NFL, but it's the same sport. Are the most viewed TV show in the not in the world, but in the
Super
nation.
Bowl is the most viewed event of the year, typically.
Yeah, above the State of the Union, above any sort of political debate, above everything, above The Bachelor. Everyone's watching the Super Bowl, especially when Taylor Swift's involved. So there's so much money involved, and now you're seeing that. How much pull do you think ESPN has? How much pull do you think Fox has? All these TV deals that are getting signed, especially getting aligned with these conferences. Who's pulling the strings? And you can kind of see, like, hey, NCAA, get out the way. ESPN wants to call the shots. Fox Sports wants to call the shots. CBS wants to call the shots. I mean, man, they're putting all this money into it. They want to have some leverage in decision making, and you're seeing that happening, especially with realignment.
Yeah, and with all of this, you make a good point. I mean, there's a whole reason we're at 12 college football teams in the playoff. More games make more money. That's just how it is. You have more games and you can spread them out over the weekend. More games equals more money.
I might be in the minority. I like 12. I think 12 is the perfect number. I hope they don't go anything past it. And the thing I like the most about the 12 is that we get home games. You get.
That's what I'm excited about.
And I'm very, very excited. I'm glad they didn't just make them bowl games. I'm glad they're making them home games. I mean, can you imagine Clemson, Ohio State? Obviously, it'd be at Clemson because we would be the higher seed in any situation.
I would go as far as saying the next round should even be on campus too, because if I'm a fan, I'm not going to be able to go to the round of 8, the round of 4, and the championship.
Right. You're going to go to 1.
And because these games aren't always going to be geographically close, like as a Clemson fan, you might get the round of 8 in Phoenix, you might get the round of 4 in Orlando, and you might get the championship in Dallas. Like,
yeah, you're not going.
None of those are conveniently close. Where, yeah, okay, maybe you can go to 1, but also some of these are going to be last minute trips. Like you're booking within a week notice. Like it's not always going to be the easiest. Like you just got to think that, like, yeah, if you're in Oregon, none of those are drivable. You have to fly to no matter where you're going.
Speaking of that, how ballsy are the people who like pre-book all these trips like months in advance?
I would only go. So when the championship was in Indianapolis, I thought about trying to get tickets just because I thought it'd be cool and it's only 3 hours away. Thinking Ohio State might have a chance. And then they didn't. And they ended up not even making the playoff that year.
Hey, the guy that's kept y'all out of there is gone now.
Mr. Stetson Bennett?
No, Connor Stallions. He's kept you out of Indianapolis. Oh, you're talking about the championship game. Sorry. I thought you were talking about the Big Ten championship.
Well, yeah, that one too. No, the national championship was in Indy when Georgia and Alabama played it. And Keely Ringo intercepted the pass. I thought about trying to go to that just because, but like,
y'all should beat Georgia.
I don't know if I would ever go to multiple games. I went to a national championship game a couple years ago when they played Alabama in the 2020. I was there.
That was
when they got boat raced. Yeah. I mean, that was an insane Alabama team.
Why would you bring that up, Dick? You know why y'all got to that game? Why would you that hurts my heart still, knowing that y'all beat us in 2020.
That's another conversation I would love to have this offseason about how sweet that victory was and how poetic justice just came and made it all make sense.
You don't think there's an asterisk? I mean, y'all played 4 less games. Don't get me fired up.
Such poetic justice.
Yeah, it was.
Such poetic justice. All the reasons we screwed up the year before were the exact reasons why we won the next year.
That is so true. Yeah.
There was a controversial fumble. There was a controversial
targeting.
targeting call.
That's
Like
bullshit.
it was like chef's kiss. It was poetic justice for all of
All
us.
right, so now that I'm in pain, hurt people. Do you think James Skalski is the reason y'all didn't win the national championship? I mean, because Justin Fields was playing with broken ribs. So let's just call a spade, and he broke his ribs on that targeting call.
No, I think the defense sucked. The main thing is we put the slowest linebacker on the Heisman Trophy winner in the national championship game. Our
What's wrong with
defense
that?
was so terrible. Tough Borland, our white linebacker, was on Devonta Smith in the national championship game, and I don't know if I've ever seen a worse matchup in my life. Of like the slowest player on the team is faced off against the Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah, that's a matchup nightmare. Anytime you put a linebacker on a wide receiver, it's tough. Anytime you put a 5'10", maybe he runs a 5 flat linebacker against the Heisman Trophy slot receiver, it's gonna be a long day.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. All right, let's move on here. We have some realignment news here. You know, if nobody saw, UMass is now in a conference.
They're perfect for the MAC. That I cannot
They
wait to
played
see.
in the MAC recently. Like they were in the MAC and then they left. Now they're going back.
They're like a toxic ex-girlfriend. You're just gonna keep on bringing them back, and I think it's smart on them. They're independent now. They have a chance to make it to the college playoff, Jake.
That's the important thing. If they go
And,
undefeated, they can make the playoff.
yeah, and now Notre Dame has
They've
to sit
never
there
made a
and look.
bowl game as an FBS team, but if they go undefeated, they can make the playoff.
How funny is that? They won't. They won't.
That's about to be my team in the new NCAA game. They're about to win the national championship first year.
Hey, save that. We're going to discuss that later because I'm definitely picking an FC or FBS Group of 5 team. Notre Dame. You think Notre Dame's looking and being a little envious, like, ooh, maybe we need to dabble in the conference stuff?
So yes and no, because I think the way the Notre Dame fans have rationalized it is even if you're the number one team, like they're not playing in a conference championship game, so their 13th game is that first round.
Right.
Now they say that. Now let's wait until Notre Dame is in the top 4 at 12-0, and they have to play a bad team. They're not a bad team, a good team. They're the number 5 seed, and then they're hosting. I guess they host the Group of 5 team.
Maybe.
Or maybe they'd host somebody different, but
yeah,
I can only imagine the outrage at that point from Notre Dame fans if they're 12-0 number 1 team in the country, but they're the 5 seed because of how they're doing the rankings.
And that's the most likely scenario. Mm-hmm. Honestly, Jake, I think they joined the Big Ten. I think they cut ties to the ACC, and I think they joined the Big Ten. And I think it's all pending on what happens with Florida State in this Grant rights lawsuit.
They're going to see the writing on the wall at some point where they're going to realize they're going to have to cut bait and join, especially with they can, especially with the Big Ten and SEC likely going to be in charge, because the Big Ten's not going to go and be like, hey, Notre Dame, what you think? They're going to be like, no, you're either in or you're out.
Right. And I mean, I think it's that's the perfect marriage, honestly. And the only thing that's in question is Notre Dame able to join a conference and keep a TV deal, independent TV deal? And I think that's the biggest hang up. I think that's the biggest hang up in all negotiations.
I think they could figure out a way, though. I don't think it's impossible. And
I think
I think you would just have to figure it out. And obviously, it's only when Notre Dame has home games, too. When away games, everybody else gets to do their own.
Yeah. I'd never heard this before. Someone called NBC the other day at work. We have a lot of people at work that are from Ohio and Michigan, and this person called NBC, Notre Dame broadcast channel, and I thought that was pretty funny. I'd never heard that before. Is that something else say a lot up there in the Midwest?
No, not that I'm aware.
No, okay. Well, there you go. You learn something new every day, Jake. I just gave you a little nugget.
There you go. And then there's also talk about the playoff expansion. That there's some rumors going around of whether there's going to be some auto bids for multiple teams rather than just the conference champs, where the SEC and the Big Ten would get multiple automatic bids.
Yeah.
And then there's also some rumors they might go to 16. I really hope we don't, because if we go to 16, we're going to end up at 24 soon enough. And I don't need 24 teams. I don't need 16 teams in the playoff. We don't need to sit here and debate who the 16th best team is and who got screwed.
Right. And honestly, like, what this is telling us, what I'm reading, if I'm reading the tea leaves, so in our face right now is playoff change, playoff change, playoff change. So that's all we're looking at. What I'm looking at is this tells me that the SEC and the Big Ten know something we don't. And what it sounds like is if they're gonna get additional auto bids for SEC and Big Ten teams, it seems like they already know that they're going to be breaking away from the NCAA. It seems like they already know they're going to be their own thing, have their own playoff, and that's what would be happening anyway. If they're going to go to quadrants, it's going to be the same setup. It's just going to be it's just a pig with with different lipstick. It's just going to look different with a different logo.
I think
But
they're waiting on. We'll get in this in a minute, but I think they're waiting on these court cases with the ACC to see what happens. And I think there's a couple different lawsuits out there, especially like this one with the NIL, of figuring out where is the NCAA's justification, like what can they do, like how much is their power, and can any of these ACC teams get out of the grant of rights? Because if they can, like Florida State's out, Clemson's out, Miami and North Carolina are probably also out.
yeah, and honestly, so early on in this grant of rights lawsuit with Florida State, it looked like Florida State was sitting pretty. Looked like they're going to be out any day now, and we're going to be scotch free, and then the ACC was just going to implode. But what's been happening lately is all these arguments that Florida State's created, because Florida State's biggest argument was, well, we signed the grant of rights in Florida, and the grant of rights stated that essentially where you sign this grant of rights is where the law abides, where you have to abide by the law, and the law in Florida was separate from all the other states, and they were able to, anyway, they were trying to say that the signature was invalid because of some reason of them.
They were trying to
signing
say
it.
they had never seen it either.
So that there actually is some validation or some not integrity. There is some truth to that. So to a certain extent, they have seen it, but in order to see it after they signed it, you have to go to the ACC head office in Charlotte. You have to go in there in person, and you cannot scan it, you cannot copy it, and you have a certain.
And there's
amount of
somebody
time
that
to read it.
watches it, sits there with you the whole time,
You
which
have a proctor.
is very weird.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad deal. That sounds like you made a deal with the devil, which they did. But it's looking like now that Florida State's two options are this: stay in the ACC or pay $300 million to get out. And honestly, from a couple other things I've read, it looks like the ACC might want to cut a deal too, because they're getting dragged through the mud. People are watering down the ACC's image because of what Florida State's doing. Everybody's like, "Oh, the ACC's stupid. The ACC is going to implode." All this negativity around the ACC is not good for their brand. It's not good for expansion. It's not good for staying alive. It's not good for convincing Clemson, UNC, Virginia Tech to stick around. So, do they cut bait and allow Florida State to leave on a discount, or do they say, hell, let's just ride it through? So we'll see what happens. Honestly, in my opinion, I think Florida State's going to take that deal. I think they're gone. I think they're going to be in the Big Ten, probably effective 2025. And as soon as one school breaks it, all hell's going to break loose. Because if they let Florida State out on $300 million, Clemson's gone, UNC's gone, Georgia Tech's gone. It's just going to be a domino effect. And I think the biggest benefactor of the ACC imploding will be the Big 12, because then the Big 12, now I think they'll be able to have a seat at this table of the Big Two, of the Big Ten and the SEC. I think
They'll
the
clean up of the Virginia Techs and
the NC States, the Louisvilles,
the Pitt,
right?
Like they'll really get some big, not necessarily big time programs. They'll really get some names that can also expand.
And I think the biggest losers would be Boston College.
Syracuse is going to get screwed in that too.
I don't know though, Jake. I don't know, because, well, I guess lately in basketball they don't carry the same weight that they used to. But I wouldn't say that so quickly with their newest hire. What's the new Fran Brown? I think that's going to help them out a lot, and I think that's going to help them get clout, and people are going to be more drawn to them. I think that gives them an option to join the Big Ten. Give the Big Ten.
Louisville goes to the Big 12 for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think the rejects go to Big 12, and the Island of Misfit Toys will be the Big 12. But they'll have so many. upper mid-tier teams that they cannot
Mhm.
compete with the other two. I mean, you have Utah.
Watching Arizona State, NC State play in the Big 12 is just like breaks my brain.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the Hatfields and McCoys. That's a border war right there, baby.
It's just like imagine saying that 2 years ago where you're like, Arizona State, NC State could be in the same conference and they could play for a Big 12 title.
Think about this, Jake. So my first ever Clemson game, I went and we were playing, let's say a conference game. My first ever Clemson conference game, we're playing Wake Forest. That's in North Carolina. I'm buying tickets.
Thanks for letting us know that Wake Forest was in North Carolina for the casuals.
Just for the casuals, yeah. Some of y'all demon deeks that don't know. And it's not in Wake Forest, North Carolina, which there is Wake Forest, North Carolina. It's in Winston-Salem, so don't get that confused. My son is going to be going to his first Clemson game this year against Stanford. Who would have ever thought my son's first conference football game that he had ever been to his entire life was Clemson versus Stanford?
That, if you had told me a year ago, I wouldn't have believed him.
Yeah, I'd have said you're stupid. And now this is a reality.
Now this is a reality that these teams are in the same conference.
Yeah. So long story short, ACC it's just a matter of time before it's dead.
Other news which I wanted to talk about was early signing day. There sounds like there's some momentum that early signing day is going to happen the week of college football conference championships.
Yep.
Looks like it's going to be that Wednesday. I'd like to get your opinion on this.
I think that's great. Now, I think there's going to be some pushback because what's going to happen is a lot of recruiting happens up to the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of phone calls. Guys that are competing in the conference championships are going to be like, hey, this is bullshit. Like, we're going to lose some guys that we might have gotten in years prior. Overall, though, I think this is very, very beneficial. And I think this is pushing more towards the model of, hey, let's build off recruiting, because now you don't have time. Like, you're getting your guys.
You're not balancing of like, well, this guy entered the portal, so now I got to figure out a defensive end, and this guy might enter the portal, so now I need another running back in this class. You have your class figured out.
Yep.
And then that also allows the guys that are going to enter the portal to know exactly who's going to be there.
Right. And that's what the portal was set up for. That is the model. The portal is set to supplement a roster, not build a roster, Deion Sanders and Mike Norvell. So you're supplementing your roster. The intent of college football is to build through high school recruiting. So this is perfect for that. I love it. I'm glad they're doing it, because honestly, the last couple of years, high school kids have lost out because now they're waiting. Hey, you're not only competing against the other high school guy now you're competing against a freaking junior who's been in a college program for 3 or 4 years already, and you're going to lose that 11 times out of 10.
And there's talk of them adding a summer signing day before their senior year, and I think that makes sense because there are some guys that know exactly where they're going. Like, you've got the kid that grew up in Texas that wore Longhorn stuff as a kid, knew exactly where he wanted to go as soon as he got that offer. Really only took his visit. He went on other visits, but knew he was going to Texas his whole time. Like, let's get those kids. They're locked away. You don't got to worry about them anymore.
Right. And the earlier you can do that, the earlier you can project your roster, and the earlier you can supplement your with the transfer portal using 1, 2, 3, 4 players instead of 15. Ole Miss.
And I think with this as well is it's going to. What was I going to say? With knowing the situation for who you have, like if you were able to sign them in August, if you're able to sign kids in August, that helps with the coaching calendar.
100%.
Because all of a sudden, this kid that is committed you 100% the whole time, you aren't still recruiting him to stay committed. And the thing is, these kids aren't screwed if a coach gets fired. If a head coach gets fired, they have to let you out of your NLI. You have to get let out of your letter of intent if your coach gets fired, if you request it. So it doesn't mean that just because you sign there, if the coach gets fired, you're not screwed. If you want to leave because that's what you want to do, it's your prerogative.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it will be good. And I could see there being a lot more kids that move towards the regular signing day because, their schedule, their high school schedule doesn't allow them to take many visits, where then they want to use that December, January timeframe to figure out where they want to go.
Yeah. Anything that is put into place to benefit high school kids is I'm going to be very pro.
Mhm.
I'm going to be for it 9 times out of 10. So this is good. This is like I said earlier, we're moving in the direction of what the transfer portal was intended to be. The transfer portal was intended to be for kids who, A, their coach left, B, had family matters, C, they just weren't playing at all. We're still going to have tampering. It's like the hackers on freaking Call of Duty, man. It's just going to keep happening. We keep catching them as much as we want, but it's just going to keep happening. But this is going to limit that, hopefully.
All right, let's talk about the part that you've been most excited for. We have been getting some consistent news about the new college football game. Some consistent news, and now, apparently people have been able to pre-order everything, so we know it's coming. We're no longer waiting. It is happening. It's coming. We got a teaser. Sounds like we're going to get it this summer, and I know that I am going to be glued to my PlayStation.
Yep. And I to my Xbox. I've already told my wife that we will be having a temporary divorce for maybe about a month. I will not go to work. I will not be a dad. I will not be a husband. I will not be a friend. I will be the best college football coach on the planet in my little made-up world. And that's what happens when you have to wait a decade for a college football game. And I may have started a little fire, Jake, on Twitter, known as X, formerly known as Twitter, concerning the $600 and free game copy for people opting in controversy. What are your takes on this entire situation now that we've had about a week of letting that sit in?
Fill me in.
So what's happened is EA has offered every person that opts in $600 plus a free copy of the game. So essentially $670. And the big argument is that's not nearly enough. These guys are worth way more than that. That's a slap in the face. Mike Florio put it as you're treating these people like children. My opinion was put on Twitter. That's asinine to say you're treating someone like a child if you're giving them essentially $700. Number one, EA is a business, whether we like it or not. There's 85 scholarship players per team. There's 133 teams that are going to be in this game. That's almost $7 million. That's over $7 million, Jake. That's over $7 million. I know college football is going to make a lot of money off of this game, but you're forking out over $7 million before you even make a dime. And that's not on top of paying your own people. That's not on top of paying these schools royalties. It's not a good business model. But secondly, all you have to do as a player is opt in. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't take away from your NIL money. It doesn't take away from any other opportunities. You're literally just opting in. And you know what? You don't have to opt in. That's the thing. It's an opt-in. Opt means optional. You do not have to opt in. If you think that's child's money, opt out. Don't do it.
Yeah. And honestly, I think a lot of these guys are going to want to see themselves in a video game.
For sure. For sure.
This
is the College Football Players PA. This is the Players Association that is saying these things. Not necessarily. I have not seen an individual player say anything.
No, and
they haven't. But I've seen a group, a collective.
These guys want to see themselves in a game. That's the cool thing about it. You want to see yourself in the game because you want to be able to be your own quarterback. You want to be your wide receiver, and I get the top 1% might be like, oh, this isn't fair. I'm worth way more than this. Last year, your Marvin Harrisons, your Caleb Williams, guys like that would be like, I'm worth way more than that. But think about all the other schools. Think about the backup defensive tackle at Ball State.
Well, hell, think about
who might not even be getting. Think about these MAC schools. Some of these guys aren't getting money. These smaller schools are not getting much in a collective. They're not getting $500,000. They might be getting $10,000 total to just help offset expenses.
If that.
But the backups are probably getting next to nothing. Like they might be able to make some money doing some camps in their hometown.
Yeah.
$600 though. Like I know that these kids are going to opt in. I think you might see a couple notable guys opt out for random reasons. You're going to have somebody opt out. You're not going to get every single person to opt in, but you know what? That's fine. They're known as the ones that opted out, and everybody's going to and they're going to hurt their own brand by opting out.
Right. Well, it's free $600.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything for it. You sign a paper.
Yeah, we have. Well, there's no NIL laws. Take the copy and sell it.
Sign it and sell it.
Yeah, exactly.
This was my personal copy. Sign it, sell it, double your money.
Yeah, exactly. Like
you telling me that if Travion Henderson signs his personal copy and sells it because he could buy a copy as well.
That's not a $70.
You're not telling me that an Ohio State fan wouldn't pay $1,000 for that?
At least you could put a bid war on it, and you're doing great. Have one of those banquets we talked about earlier, and have some money thrown at it. So I think all the positive side of the game. I'm so glad it's back. I'm so glad Notre Dame decided to be in there so I can whoop their tail. In my dynasty mode, I will always have them scheduled so I can beat them.
Here's my question: who is the first team you're starting a dynasty with?
Well, it's got to be Clemson. But,
okay, so after you do your one with Clemson, because who is the second team you're going to start with?
I'm torn, and I might need the people's help. I might need the 5-star listeners' help. So it's either App State,
okay,
or Coastal Carolina, or Wyoming.
Ooh, interesting.
And sometimes you gotta be wild west. So those are my three. Maybe I'll put a vote out there and I'll get 20 votes and we'll see what happens. But those are the three I'm really thinking about. I'm leaning more towards Wyoming or App State. Coastal Carolina is just they're close to me, but App State's a lot cooler than Coastal Carolina. I mean, Boone, North Carolina's a lot cooler than Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
So I'm thinking if I want to go real random, I'll go Sam Houston State.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
Like you want to go real random, you go Sam Houston State. If I want to go maybe a little bit of a better program, well, I'll have to do it with Temple. Temple's going to win a national title.
You have to do
Temple's going to win a national title.
You could do UMass. You could win a national title with UMass now.
UMass has a MAC team.
They opted in.
UMass has a MAC team. Win a MAC title and then go win the national championship. And then, I think like San Jose State could be fun.
Yeah. Have you thought about doing like another poverty program like Ohio State? Like maybe seeing if they could win a national. I mean, when's the last time they won a national championship? It's been a really, really long time.
It's been a decade, Will.
That's a long time.
It's been a decade. It's been a decade. But I know Ohio State's a poverty-stricken program. They might need me to run the program so they can win a title this year.
Ryan Day can't beat Jim Harbaugh. You can create Jim Harbaugh as the coach at Michigan, and you can go beat.
I will not do that. I will create Connor Stallions as the head coach, though, because that will fulfill the manifesto.
I put a question out there, Jake, and this is the real question. At what point do you think you can get the Connor Stallions perk on your coaching skill tree in your dynasty mode?
I think if you do the advanced scouting, you'll get the Connor Stallions perk.
Yeah. Oh, that's gonna be great. I'm very excited for this game. Honestly, I want to see the perks. I am a little afraid though. Like the pessimistic side of me is like, man, we're so like this game is getting so hyped up. It is being run by EA. EA has gone to shit in the past decade. Do they screw this up? If they do pay for play stuff, they're going to ruin it.
The thing is, I think the college football community is like the first one's going to make a ton of money. I mean, there's no question about it.
Yeah.
But I think the college football community is going to be so passionate and tell them what they did wrong that they're going to have to correct it.
Well, they also have a decade worth of people doing mods, people talking about this. They have all this crowdsourcing information.
If you go online, people have been able to make playoffs and upload it into the last game, the NCAA 14. They've been able to update it and make it a playoff in there. They've been able to, do realignments. People have been able to figure out how to, modify the game to make it still current.
Yeah, if you need any sort of like college football fix on YouTube, watch Not the Expert. I don't know if you've ever seen him before, Jake. He does an excellent job of he builds these schools, and he modded it to have updated rosters, have a playoff, and He's very entertaining. Get you a fix. This is a free shout out to Not the Expert. Go watch him. He's pretty entertaining. He did a couple. He did the NGU Pandas. He did the I forget what the other one was. The Dingoes. You know, very fun to watch with his college football stuff. And honestly, like he's very proactive in this crowdsourcing. Opting information to EA. Like, hey, this is what we want to see in the game. He's got a pretty big following. I think we're going to see a lot of these guys get contacted or at least get tapped into as a resource to say what should the game hold, what do you like, what do your fans
Mhm.
like, because those fans are the guys who are going to be playing it, going to be buying it.
Yeah, and if it's bad, they're gonna let them know real quick.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
All right, I got one more segment here before we get out of here. With it only being February, heading into March, I wanted to do a way too early contender versus pretender.
Ooh.
Well, I know we still have a spring portal to go. There's a lot that we don't know, but I'm gonna name some teams, and you just tell me if you think they're a contender to make the 12-team playoff, or if you think they're a pretender, and you don't really think they have a chance. So, and I want to preface this: we're removing the obvious teams. Ohio State, Alabama, Oregon, Georgia, Texas are all pretty much consensus contenders to make the college football playoff this year. So let's let's start with a team on here. Let's start with Tennessee.
Okay, I think Tennessee's a contender to make the playoff. I don't think they're a contender to win the SEC per se. Um, I think with I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not.
Nico, I know his name's Nico.
Yeah, I'm just gonna call him by his first name, Nico. I think he's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of promise, and Josh Heupel's done an excellent job of recruiting there and making that Tennessee program back to being a feared program on your schedule. I think they're a contender. I don't think they're one of the top contenders. I don't think they're a shoe-in by any means, but I think they're definitely up there.
Here, let's change this actually. Give me a percent chance that you think for them to make the 12-team playoff.
That's a good one. I'd say 60%. I think they're above 50.
I was going to say 50%, so I'm right there with you. I think they're right around 50-50 chance. I think Nico obviously is a key one there. The
Yeah.
defense improved. I'm curious to see what the offensive skill players look like for this year.
Yeah, we'll say as a podcast, we're 55% on Tennessee.
There we go. Clemson.
All right, so
You're a little biased here, but
Walk on Moose is 100%. Honestly, I think Clemson has a 70% chance. So you're in an ACC. The ACC is a little weaker. Florida State has a lot of questions. They have DJ.
You don't know who the clear-cut favorite of the year is going to be. There's no team that's bringing a ton of guys back. We're like, wow, like they're definitely going to make the playoff.
Right, and so obviously I'm a little biased, and I'm a lot more tapped into Clemson. I know like a lot of these guys that they didn't have last year are going to be healthy and be able to play a lot of contributors that we thought we were going to have. The class they have coming in pretty good. I'm very confident that Clemson will be back in this playoff consideration. I mean, it's a 12-team playoff. They should be able to make it. They could still make it as an ACC runner-up. I think Clemson has a really good shot of winning the ACC and making the playoff this year.
Yeah, I have Clemson at 80% in my opinion, just because I think they are going to need to make the playoff this year. It's been a couple of years since Clemson has been there. Not that Dabo's seat's getting hot, but I think he's starting to feel a little bit of pressure just not being there, not hitting the goals that he wants to hit. And
yeah, for sure.
It's very clear that the ACC is up for grabs this year. Drake May is gone. Florida State loses a lot of talent. There is a void at the top of the conference. And I think Clemson is the logical fit there.
Yeah. All right. So as a podcast, we're 75%. I like that. I like 75%.
Let's go Miami, Florida.
Man, I got some heat for this crap in my early season prediction. So I did at the beginning of February, I predicted Miami to go undefeated. And I think that might have been a little overhyped due to Cam Ward signing with them. I thought that's a huge get. Xavier Restrepo's coming back. I think he was the lifeblood of that offense last year. They've been doing really well with recruiting. But I would put them at a 65%, maybe 70% as well. And I'm going to err towards 65%. And the reason for that is you have a lot of question marks still. Miami wasn't the best team last year. They have all this talent. But
They would have won one more game if they knew what the victory formation was.
yeah, if they could take a knee. Turns out that's a lot harder to do. But they're right there on the cusp, and they have to break through this wall. And I think if they have another mediocre season this year and lose to Rutgers in a bowl game, you know, I think Mario Cristobal's seat is pretty hot, and I think maybe he's out if they have another mediocre season.
Do you know he signed a 10-year, $80 million contract when he took Miami?
Wow, I did not know that.
I think he's got to stick around a little longer than that when you sign him. Also, Manny Diaz, he wasn't great, but Manny Diaz was not like, wow, you're bad, you deserve to be fired. Like, that guy was 21-15 across 3 seasons. It's not like he was like glaring, like, ooh, you're terrible.
If you want to talk about the recipe for Manny Diaz's Miami team every single year was get hyped, be in the news clippings every single week because of something crazy that you're doing, bringing Miami back, getting yourself into the top 15, getting destroyed by Clemson, then having a decent season at the end of the year and losing in your bowl game.
Basically.
So
I've got Miami at a 35% chance. I'm just not. I'm not high on him this year, and I like Cam Ward a lot, but I'm just not sure Cam Ward is a guy that can get them to the playoff. I'm not sure he's the guy that get them over the hump. I think there's a bunch more things they need to work on.
Yeah,
I'm just not sold on Miami. I think they could go win 8 or 9 games. I'm just not sure. 9 might get them there. I'm just not sold on it.
I think I would settle at 50. I'm going to settle at 50%. So we got 35 and 50%. So we're in the 40 range.
Let's go Florida State, another ACC team.
Man, I think they're at 45%. I don't understand how people can think they can lose as much as they lost from the transfer portal. They're losing Jared Verse. They're losing Jordan Travis. They're losing Johnny Wilson. They're losing Keon Coleman. They're losing Jaheim Bell. They're losing everything.
Their running back Benson, who I'm blanking on the first name.
Trey Benson.
Yeah, Trey Benson. Trey Benson, losing him too.
He's gone. The defense tackle I love, Braden Fisk, gone.
They're losing a ton of talent on this team.
And people were ready to crown Florida State ACC dynasty back, all that stuff after 1 year of success. I mean, Mike Norvell has turned the program around. They were awful when he took over, but
they basically should have made the playoff. They went undefeated in the regular season.
Right. But are we ready to give them as a shoe-in? I put them at 40% this year. The DJU project is going to be very interesting. I love DJU as a person. From what I've seen, how he presents himself to the media, how he presents himself on social media. I wished he was a lot better at Clemson. I wished he was a lot better at Oregon State. He's a very, very, very average, streaky passer who can win you games, but God, it's just not very often. If you're relying on him to get you into the playoffs, it's not going to happen. So I got them at a 40%.
Yeah, I'm actually even less confident in Florida State because we talked about the amount of guys they're losing. I got them at 25%. I mean, they could sneak in there. The ACC is kind of a question mark, so you could find a way to win enough games, but I'm not confident. I think they're going to lose a couple. And DJU just was not accurate throwing the ball more than 10 yards downfield last year. No. I'm just not going to rely on that.
Go check out my article and did the transfer portal pay off for these guys. And DJU was one of the ones that was positive, but it was barely. Go check it out. No spoilers.
All right, I want these next two. Let's go a little quick here. Penn State,
50%. Oh, well, wait. It's 12. It's 12-team playoff. Mm-hmm. I'm going 65%.
I think I'm right around that 70-75%. I think the offense, you would hope Drew Aller can figure it out this year. Second year starting. They brought in Julian Fleming. They're still the running backs. Defense loses a decent bit, but they don't play Michigan this year. They still play Ohio State, but I think the schedule is a little bit easier. I'm going to put them at 70-75%.
And I'm gonna jump up to 70 as well. The biggest hire was the offensive coordinator coordinator hire from Kansas.
Kolonicki or whatever his name was.
I think that's going to be phenomenal for them. And I forget who the DC was that replaced
Tom Allen.
Diaz. I think that's another good hire, but I think Penn State's trending.
If they don't make the playoffs this year, there's a serious question about James Franklin.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put that.
Oh, yeah.
Ole Miss.
I got a hot take about Ole Miss. I don't think they're going to be very good this year. I think they're going to be decent. I think there might be an 8 or 9 win team.
Either with Walter Nolan on defense.
Either with Walter Nolan on defense. Listen, he's 1 out of 11. I mean, I'm gonna put him at. Shout out to Lane Kiffin, 69%. But I don't think Ole Miss is going to. Ole Miss is not going to be this world beater team that we think it's going to be, or that the media is portraying them to be. But I'll put them at 69%.
I got them around 75. I think this is the year they need to get in. You know, they've got guys. They lost Judkins, but they still have. Why am I blanking on Ulysses Bentley the fourth?
Great name. I remember
Insane name for a running back.
Go back and watch our preview of the SEC before the season started, and I was loving that name back then.
LSU. I don't even know who's going to be who's going to run the quarterback. Like, is it Garrett Nussmeier? Is it somebody
35%.
else? Yeah,
35%.
I'm right around. I was thinking the same thing. I'm 25, 30.
Who's going to run the offense? Who are you going to throw to? Harold Perkins is being moved to inside linebacker permanently. Bad move, in my opinion. He's a sack artist. Why the hell are you putting him inside? I think Brian Kelly.
They lose Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, Brian Thomas.
Yeah, they lose a bunch of guys on the offense. I think next year could easily be just an 8-win team for LSU.
The Heisman quarterback.
Yeah, Mizzou.
35%. Missouri's Missouri. I mean, they're going to be good, but they're not going to be.
I think if they're going to do it, they're going to break through next year. I'm going to give them a 60% chance with Brady Cook coming back. They lose Cody Schrader, but they still got Luther Burden. And I forget who. I thought they got a big name transfer too, but I'm trying
to. They did.
I
can look it up while you're talking.
I forget who it was, but I know that they got some big name transfer. I think the defense will be still pretty good. Drinkwitz, I think, has started to figure it out. But Brady Cook will be back, and I think they'll be pretty. Yeah, that's what it was.
No.
All right.
No, he left. He's the one who went from Missouri to Georgia. I'm confusing myself now.
Anyways, how about Notre Dame?
Well, if they were in a conference, I think it'd be 100%. But because they're not. Notre Dame, I like Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard is not a playoff contending quarterback. Guys, you went from Sam Hartman, who struggled immensely last year, but is a really good passer, to Riley Leonard, who's not a very good passer. So either Freeman's got them moving in a situation in which they want to be run dominant and do a lot of read option. Cool. I still don't think you're going to beat that many people, but they have a pretty easy schedule. I would put them at the 35% 40 range.
Yeah, I think they're going to struggle a little bit next year. They lost a lot of wide receivers. You lose. Why am I blanking? Audric Estime. You lose Audric Estime as your running back.
Yep.
Riley Leonard struggled to stay healthy, and he's very mobile.
Ironically,
and I'm not sure what the offense will look like with him. Also, Torino Pride and Chris McClellan were the two guys I was thinking of. Chris McClellan was a pretty good defensive lineman at Florida, and Torino Pride came from Clemson, was a pretty high recruit.
Never heard of him.
He was a pretty good recruit out of high school.
Yeah,
so we'll see how he fares over at Mizzou. Oklahoma State with Ollie Gordon.
I like the returning talent. Oklahoma's out of the Big 12, so you have a good shot at winning the Big 12 this year. But
isn't Alan Bowman the quarterback again somehow?
Yeah, in his 94th year of eligibility. I like Mike Gundy. I like to put faith in Mike Gundy. I think they have to win their conference to get in.
There's going to be almost nobody from the Big 12. They might get one, maybe two teams.
Yeah, you got to beat Utah.
Arizona is going to be an interesting one too.
Yeah, well, you gotta think, the border war of Oklahoma and Arizona and Utah. I mean, they're fighting. That's
Mm,
that's that's the tri-state area. Um,
exactly.
I'd put them at 40%. I'd put them at 30%. I mean, Utah. I'm very excited about Cam Rising. He's game time decision for coming back next year.
Yeah, he
Uh,
is.
yeah,
Same with their tight end, who I'm blanking on his name.
it's the offseason. It's okay.
Brayton Cruth, something like that. I'm going to go Oklahoma State 20%. I'm just not super high. I think it's a great story, but I don't know if they're actually good enough. Kansas with Jalen Daniels.
So I have them. They're competing as one of my favorites to win the Big 12. I have
Jalen
them.
Daniels' health is so important to that
It's
team.
very. It is. It
They
is
do not have a
such an
Jason
important
Bean
thing.
on the team next year.
Correct. You don't have a powerful backup to come in and save the day. I put them at 50%. They are a coin flip, and that is the coin flip is heads. Daniel stays healthy. Tails, he does not.
With Texas and Oklahoma leaving, I haven't looked at their schedule, but without those two, they should be competitive in just about every single game. I don't know if they
Yeah.
have Utah on the schedule. Utah and Arizona are the two main teams in my mind. I think Arizona, who is not actually on this list, and we're not talking about them, Arizona, I think, is a really formidable team that could make the playoff just because they're returning all of those offensive weapons. They did not leave with Jed Fish to go to Washington. And I think Arizona could be contending for the playoff next year because they might win the Big 12.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go Kansas. I'm also with you 50% there. How about USC?
Nothing says Midwest football like USC, Los
Nothing to.
Angeles, Pasadena. Um,
I'll go first on this one if you want me
yeah,
to.
you go ahead. Yeah.
10%. I
And
don't. I don't like the team. I know that they went and replaced the defensive coordinator. Alex Grinch isn't there anymore.
that's what I was going to
I
say.
think if you have Lincoln Riley and you have one of the arguably the best quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks of the last decade, prospect wise, you can rank him in probably the top 10 for sure. And the best you can do is 7-5. And you had Dorian Singer, you had Braden Rice, you had Marshawn Lloyd, you had all these offensive playmakers. Best you can do is 7-5, and any team with a pulse was going on your defense. Now, granted, you think the defense will get better, but I don't think Moss Miller, or whatever his name is going to elevate the team to be in the playoffs. I think you get a 10%. I think they're at best a 9-3 team this year.
Yeah, and you're not playing in the Pac-12 anymore. You're playing Ohio State. You're playing.
And all the good Pac-12 teams came with you.
Right. So I have them at a 35% because they have to make it in. They're not going to win the conference, so they have to make it in by earning it the blue collar way, and that's not USC.
How about Utah?
I've got Utah at 80%. I think they're going to win the Big 12, and I'm 80% sure they're going to win the Big 12, and that's their end. I like Cam Rising a lot. I'm forgetting the backup quarterback's name, Bryson Barnes. I like Bryson Barnes.
Bryson Barnes left.
He did leave. You're right. Oh my
Bryson
gosh.
Barnes left. I don't know where he went, but I know he left.
Brent Kuth is who we were thinking about, the tight end. I like him a lot. I love Kyle Whittingham, the coach. I love him. So
Utah would have made the playoffs plenty of times as a 12 team. So I think they are definitely going to be in line for it. Now, the question is if Cam Rising plays this year, I think they are an 85% chance. I think they could make it even without winning the Big 12.
right.
If Cam Rising does not play or is not himself, looks like a different quarterback, we're at like a 35% chance.
35% chance.
I just don't think if without Cam Rising, I don't think they're going to be nearly as good. You saw them struggle so bad without Cam Rising this year to move the ball offensively.
He's a game time decision though, Jake.
He is going to be a game. He was a game time. It's still funny thinking back that first game. They're like Cam Rising's a game time decision. Cam Rising didn't play a snap last year.
Yeah.
And then the very last one we have here, the reigning champ, Michigan.
Jake, you might want to start off on this one.
I'm going to say Michigan has a 55% chance on this one. I think they do have a tough schedule. They have a very tough schedule, actually. They play Texas. I know they obviously have Ohio State. I believe they have 3 of the 4 West teams. I think they have both California teams and Washington. I think they avoid Oregon. Not positive on that one. I know they have 3 of the 4 new West teams. They do avoid Penn State. I know that. I think the schedule is going to be difficult. I think 9-3 this year has to be viewed as a success, but they might play a difficult enough schedule to keep themselves in the top 12. I'm going to say a 55% chance. Also, nobody knows who's going to be their quarterback.
I have them at 20%.
Ooh.
They're losing a lot. They're losing J.J. McCarthy. They're losing Jim Harbaugh. They lost Connor
They had
Stallions.
like 40 seniors.
Right. They lost Connor Stallions. They lost Blake Corum. They lost their All-American center. They lost a lot of the key contributors on defense. Keon Saab just recently is transferring. I like. Oh gosh, who's the head coach now? Sharon Moore. I like Sharon Moore. I like what he brings to the table. It's not going to be. This is going to be one of those flounders right after the big season. This is going to be similar to LSU, in which right after the national championship winning season, they're going to struggle. I think he gets them back to being competitive. I think they're losing way too much, Jake. I really do. And that, every college sees loss every single year.
Mhm.
I think they lost too much in the transfer portal as well. So, and in the coaching staff, I mean, a lot of the coaching staff got poached and went to LA with old Harbaugh. So,
yeah, it'll be
I have the
interesting to see the
20%.
continuity of the coaching staff because, yeah, Sharon Moore's got to assemble his first staff. And I mean, you just don't know how some of these guys are going to work and how the system is going to change. And you never want to be the guy after the guy.
Yep.
You want to be the guy after that guy
Yeah.
gets fired, basically, or leaves.
And Jake, I think 20% might also be nice too. I mean, we got to remember there's still some investigations going on Michigan. That stuff's not done yet.
Mhm.
A postseason ban is not out of the question. So I think I'm just going to stick at 20%. Sorry, Wolverines out there. Sorry. A shout out to my parents' neighbor Sean. I know this is going to hurt your heart. He got a Michigan National Championship flag. I think the day after they won, and put it out in their front yard. So shout out to him. Sorry, this is painful for you to hear, but I don't think y'all are going to be relevant next year.
Well, that does it for today's episode. We'll be back probably again here in a couple of weeks. Since college football is not going on, we have less content to keep up with, but we are doing our best to keep things coming out. We'll have articles still coming out. Another podcast probably here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, just to keep up with everything. We've got plenty of off-season content we can keep you guys busy with. If you have ideas, though, drop us a note. Let us know what you want to hear about. By all means, we are open to suggestions.
Yeah, who should Jake and I play as our first dynasty?
Exactly.
When we do our Walk On Red Shirts dynasty, season with everybody. So let us know.
Exactly. And while you're at it, make sure to rate the podcast. Give us 5 stars if you think that. Maybe you're a 4-star listener. Maybe you're a 5-star listener. Give us reviews. Let us know what you want to hear. Let us know what you want us to change. Make sure to follow us on all social media. We're on X or Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Probably other ones that I'm forgetting right now.
MySpace.
Also follow, probably, yeah. I got to release my mixtape here soon.
Yeah. Tom
follow
is our
William.
That's
Follow
right.
William on Twitter or X at Walk On Moose. Make sure to follow Walk On Red Shirts. We're Walk On Red Shirts on every social platform. And anything else you want to say to the people, William?
Shout out Cam Newton. The other day was a bad day to be a camper trying to jump him.
Of course. Yeah. Former Heisman Trophy winner getting in some fights.
Yeah. It turns out if you're fighting, if you're able to truck over massive linebackers and and ragdoll them, maybe a little high schooler is child's play for you. But just a little tidbit. Not all the information's out yet, but with the information I have, shout out Cam Newton.
Well, that'll do it for another episode, and we look forward to seeing you guys again soon.